Muy buenas noches, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as for the love and support everyone stands my way. From the Cora, gracias. Also, do please help get the message out there a little bit more by liking, sharing, subscribing, and hyping the video. I would highly appreciate everyone. Thank you. Well, getting right into what I want to talk about today. First and foremost, I hope I'm able to make sense on this one. I just had chemo today, so I'll try my best. But anyways, I've been asked numerous of times to actually speak or clarify, I guess. There's a YouTube channel, whichever it may be, right? You guys know I ain't into that, nor do I know which one. And if I did, I don't want a part of that, right? But basically, hypes up Huero Caballo and what he's doing, where he's at in the organization. And first of all, let me just say, the individual speaking on it, just trust him as much as you could pick up and throw, right? You don't know what he's talking about, point blank, especially when it comes down to down south politics, right? But anyways, I want to take you back to 2011, 10, 11, somewhere there, Pelican Bay. By this time, there has been a couple issues that have been put in the front line, right? When it came to the Pili Huero Caballo. First and foremost, when I first heard the topic or about Huero Caballo, I had known about him for years, right? And his reputation swim back to how he earned his bones, which it had to do with taking out a BGF member, right? When it was war against them. So I guess he earned his bones then, and he did it for the people that counted at the time, and it's why I guess he's tolerated, right? Nevertheless, as you guys know, within time, the Mesa system was going to be three Pilis, and somehow, some way, he got brought into the fold. You know, he was who he was, but you never heard of him getting any love on the streets or respect, should I say, right? Specifically when he came from his own neighborhood. But the facts are the facts. When 18 had the Verde, a lot of people just talk about how Night Owl was able to clear um, Puppet and stuff, but Weddle was real heavy on getting that green light off of 18, right? Think about it. That has a big ricochet on the Ramfla, right? If Night Out and Puppet are worried about the states and most of all on West Side 18, right? But when it's a big Ramfla like that, there's homies on every yard, deep. It brings uh it brings headaches to the Ramfla. Let's just be sincere, right? Nevertheless, Huero Caballo had a big push to take that Verde off, right? As a whole. And that's when he used the influence he had, in my opinion. But after that, a lot of things started surfacing. For example, he tried to get in on the east side. For some reason, it just never stuck. His own homeboys seemed to start and quit or there was never a kick down. What I mean by kick down, usually when you have a camarada on the street doing the peddling for a pili, they always have a right hand man. When that camarada goes, because he's going to go, because the Federico's there on you. And that's besides people you upset on the streets, right? Including other pilis. The Federicos are the ones that would eventually catch up with you, right? So the one that's being taught next to you, he's the one that takes charge, right? There was never that kick down when it came to Huero. So of course he felt left out when it came to his neighborhood. So he tried to get into the territory of Puppet, right? Night Owl, which in reality was huge because it went from the west side to South Central, the south side, and even east side, right? And again, way to try to get on that, with dirty politics. You guys get really into that, and even you know with old man Chino from Maravilla and on in TJ, it always went negative, right? I don't want to talk out of turn when it comes to Wedo, right? My respects, at least in the sense of the position he holds, right? But again, just because they did something to earn their bones correctly, in my opinion, right? Mine alone, they just don't give him the right to smug up neighborhoods, no homies. I'm gonna give you an example, right? Which is what I want to talk about. There was a homie doing a big push from 18, right? Smiley from the south side. And I just got asked of a recent mate Billy, right? From the SS of 18. See if you guys could put it together, right? It's not really out there a lot, right? Or at least I haven't heard, right? Snoops and the homie. I would say I go back with Snoop whew, since the Atchipy. Shoe. For those that have been with me, sure remember a pegada we did on an individual, me and him, where I say he had 18 on his forehead, S, S on the cheeks, big. He was a good homie, good clecha. He was working for a few Billys. Nevertheless, he would eventually hit Pelican Bay, trust his senor from 18 that was there, right? Get out and start pushing. That's when all that misunderstandings happened on the streets because Wedo wanted in. And it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to work things out with my brothers, give me a little room, un campito, and share with me, type of thing. He had more integrity in my eyes when it came to how they got made, right? How they earned their bones. No, he tried to do it behind the scenes, the dirty way, the tecato way. And that's what eventually they would have a pushback, or he would have a pushback from the other two pilis and the feds. Spend their territory, them issues they attempt to share control per se of neighborhoods, right? Which, if you we really sat down, it shouldn't be like that, right? It should be more so a neighborhood junta, and as a neighborhood decide what Billy you want to represent your neighborhood. You know, not a Billy push up on the neighborhood and force himself on the neighborhood, right? Especially by taking out your own. But anyways, there's another topic today, right? Smiley, excuse me, would have a big push on the streets, right? Building ramflas, avenues. When Huero couldn't get in with peanut butters, soldados, and TJ from 18 because they wanted to be loyal to Tio Chino, Once Peanut Butter said, hey, tumbate el rollo, cut it out, he would step back and have Homeboy Smiley go into the west side and try to build in a crew, right? Again, without addressing another Billy. When you guys know it's that's a horrible way to encroach another Billy's territory, right? Especially, think about it. He's the founder of the Mesa system to stop these headaches. So again, this individual is doing something with one hand and with another hand behind his back. He's doing the opposite of what he's pushing. Which in reality, sit down, analyze, and tell me which Billy don't do this. But again, this is on your own. Keep in mind when we talk about 18th Street, we're speaking about a heavy influence neighborhood, in and out. Or for those that don't mind, tell me what joint you've been at where there is no homies from 18. You know, anyways, Smiley would end up unfortunately moving negative on homies from 18, right? This actually came from Mao and Listo. You guys remember these two carnales, right? And they got indicted with well, with that Rico with Coco and Puppet and them, right? But anyways, things didn't go well for them later on, right? As I told that story. Please check out the playlist. But anyways, by him pushing his weight, basically Smiley went out, tried to push, didn't get his way. He would take care of his own homies. Well, 18 should be the priority neighborhood, but there's always set trip, right? Oh, South Side, South Central, East Side, West Side. When it's a big neighborhood like that, and it was on the West Side, he would circle back around, and it came down from Caballo. Again, when things hit the fan, not only Nairo, Puppet, Tio Chino, the two Pilis under Tio Chino, but a couple of Pilis up in the bay, they literally pressed on Huero, right? Why he was encroaching on neighborhoods that they already belonged to other Pilis. Keep in mind, it wasn't Puppet's fault, no night owls, that 18 wanted to respond to them and not to Huero. Again, there's always something, right? If you're in the game long enough, you're able to read individual. And I'm not saying in a negative way, but for some reason, just people didn't want to function against or with Huero. He was just, I don't know. I never had the crossings like that with him, besides a couple native run ins, right? I'll just leave it at that. When it came to camaradas from 18 that had a checada come in or down the line, I had to send word on them. I got slashed out by Huero up in the bay, which I just was told, listen and ignore. Ain't nothing gonna happen. Which it was a dangerous game to play too, because in reality, he's a Billy. He could green light you as quick as the next man, right? And even though he didn't have a reach like that on the streets, when it came pinta wise, he green lights you. Of course, his antiguity's gonna hold weight. Ain't no other Billy gonna openly rescue you and go against one of his brothers, right? So, anyways, nevertheless, I did so, and we never had a problem, right? Later on, I would be asked if he would get a crew. I would be able to help him get prizes, which I told him Simon, but that never came, right? For me then, or at least I never heard of it again. But what's important here is again I'm touching on Smiley, right? And the homie, he sewed up a pretty cool pamphlet, right? From numerous of angles, right? From South Side, South Central mostly. And when the pushback, we don't have it, they didn't have an option but to push out. But you see, we speak about a push out. When a Billy pushes out, he mainly lets camaradas drown, as he did so with Smiley. You see, there's a lot different ways to let a camarada drown. It is not necessarily by pushing against his own people, his workers, whatever. There is one abandonment, right? Which was his case. When a Billy just pushes back, stops answering, denies you when someone asks, everything falls on you. And then it becomes you're going rogue, using a Billy's name with no backing, which first and foremost, I know firsthand that wasn't the case. And I ain't hearing from Smiley. Again, at the time, well, I was close with Snoopy, with Lee Stone. Well, I'll just say a couple homies from 18, right? It was out in the open. The funny part is how they wash their hands, right? That's why I talk about the gato mentality. They do things and they wash their hands como si nada, like nothing happened. I remember any camarada pulled up from 18, Caballo was on them like nail in dirt, or dirt on nail, excuse me. It was quick, but again, he has a way to him that for some reason his own neighborhood don't want to push for him. Now, recently I heard he's this and that again. I don't know where that comes from, but more respects to everyone's outlook, right? Mm, I guess everyone's entitled to put out what they know, period, right? But, at the end of the day, it's one more for the books. Again, this is just an opening. Here's a camarada that was doing everything right for, let's just say, another Billy, even if it was night out, puppet, but he fell into the state once puppet pushed, right? And he did things for Huero, got out, kept being loyal and pushing, opening pipelines. And when push came to shove, Huero Caballo was above that. He didn't have a need to answer for the camarada. F your sacrifices. It matters what's gonna be angled my way, what's gonna benefit me. Now tell me that ain't a Tecato's mentality. And he left him to drown to the point, well, he just stopped being around. You just leave it at that, right? And I remember, you know, certain individuals went up there from the government to question or try to question at least it's Huero and all the homies from 18 and about this. And of course, there was no reply, but everybody knows what time it is. And I think it's just another in look, right? As how individuals are known to start correctly, where to earn his bones the right way. That's why he's tolerated, he's respected, you know. But along the line, he's known for crossing up a lot of his own homeboys, period, point blank. Because he feels he's being pushed aside. Again, I'll leave with this. Don't you think, as a neighborhood, you should at least have the right to decide what Billy you want to be under instead of having a Billy decide for you by force? Tell me, what would you call it? Straight being punked as a neighborhood, not even as an individual. It's what I don't understand what it became. But at the end of the day, it's why homeboy's just there. You know, you hear of him where he's at, of course, doing his thing because who he is. But on the calles is crickets, right? And there's certain things that are not out there that will make a lot more sense. But at the end of the day, I guess his own neighborhood looks at how he tried to push his brothers to the side, and he's not trustworthy. But it's what happens every day from pili to pili, from yard to yard. They're always at each other's throats, even if they admit it or not. And remember, as a camarada, you're gonna get pulled in and spit out. We don't hold no value when it comes to these individuals. We're part of a program where there's 1,000 to take our place. So again, be smart. See this for what it is. Just a message, not poison. A message to stay on top of things. And again, just because you're from a neighborhood, he's your Billy, don't mean he's loyal to you anymore. Remember, bajar bandera before committing. So be smart. Stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones.